Welcome to WEHM All Access, the podcast where we bring you in-depth conversations with the people shaping life right here on Eastern Long Island. Now, every episode, we're going to dive into the stories, the music, and the voices that define our community, from local leaders to the musicians you know and love. And throughout the summer, we're catching up with many of the performers taking the stage at the Great South Bay Music Festival, getting the inside scoop on their music, their journey, and what they're bringing to Patchogue this year. On this episode of WEHM All Access, we're speaking with Sean McGrath from the Allman Brothers Band. It's a group that spent more than a decade honoring the Allman Brothers legacy with heart, precision, and plenty of passion. We get into how they formed, how they approach the music, and what they're bringing to this year's Great South Bay Music Festival. Here's our conversation on WEHM All Access. It is the EHM Breakfast Show. We're chatting with all different bands from this year's 2026 Great South Bay Music Festival. And coming up on the Saturday, July 25th, is the Allmost Brothers Band, and we're joined by Sean McGrath from the band. How are you, Sean?
I'm well. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for doing this. It's nice to kind of get to know some of the bands, and you guys are kind of veterans of the Great South Bay Music Festival. You've done this a few years now.
That's right. That's right. We've played every year since 2017. Bearing in mind the two dark, the two blackout years for COVID, and as we were just chatting, we're back on the bill with the mule. Get behind the mule, right?
That's awesome. How long have you guys been together as a band?
Celebrating our 11th year together.
Now, what brought you to be kind of an Allman Brothers Band? A tribute band. What kind of was the impetus for that decision?
Yeah, been playing in bands pretty much since my teens and whatnot, and different music. I fell in love with the blues very, very early on. By way of London, like most of us white boy blues players did with the Brits, with Page and Clapton and Mick Taylor, Peter Green, all those guys, and then started getting into the Allman Brothers and just found that they were such a soul stew of Americana. It was all there. It was blues with Marshall amplifiers and Les Pauls. It was soul R&B. It was jazz. It was Dixie. It was everything. So we started seeing, and I got the Hitting the Note record when I was about a junior in high school, which was the last studio recording that they ever did. And once I heard that with Trucks, and that was the beginning of the legacy of the Trucks Haynes era of the band, and really where the Beacon kind of reinvigorated itself. So I just fell in love with that record, fell in love with the band all over again, and started going to the Beacon, and just going out there and falling in love with the live performance. That couldn't help be such an inspiration to myself, and so when we started playing in other bands, being a student of the blues, I was always playing with older musicians, right? So, there was a lot of kind of blues, there was a lot of classic rock stuff going on, and the Allman Brothers were always kind of within that songbook. And, it got to the point where I met a couple of musicians that we really bonded with, and I started scouting out kind of my players and whatnot. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great to put a band together that was almost like seeing the Allman Brothers, and I was like, almost Allman Brother, okay, that could do it. So we kind of just hit the ground running 11 years ago, and we've had a couple of guys come and go into the band, which we still are very, very close to and whatnot, but it just kind of happened very organically, and it was meant to be. There's a chemistry that we thrive on, and we all are very much students of the music and really take what we do very, very, very seriously. Playing this music, there needs to be a level of play that you bring to it, dedication to the music, and really kind of honoring that legacy while we're hitching our trailer onto it as well.
I was going to mention that because in a way you're kind of carrying the Allman Brothers legacy forward. What's that like? And I guess early on, when did you know that it was something you could do and feel comfortable doing it in front of an audience where you're representing such a huge history of the Allman Brothers in a way?
Yeah, you know what? When we were kind of playing with all these other musicians, a lot of the guys are older too. I'm the youngest guy, and I just turned 40, so it gives you a little bit of an indication, But when I started this band, I was 28, 29 years old, and the oldest member of the band just turned 71 this past year, who was actually at the Phil Maurice. So when we started putting this together, it was really about finding like-minded musicians who really knew the music, felt the music, and when we started to do it, like you said, it's a big responsibility, and we don't take it lightly. We really want to pay tribute to the founding members and parlay into the history of it. We know our Allmans. We know a band that lives and breathes for 45 years. There's going to be so many different interpretations of the music within the band, which is so inspiring. You don't keep guys like Trucks and Haynes around without letting them be their own musicians within this incredible songbook. And to be honest, we that's the freedom of it, and playing into the song. And what Duane Allman's vision was to be able to literally have this living, breathing organism of a band keep going and to stay progressive with it. And while we're staying progressive with it, we're still realizing our own musical identities within the songbook, because that's where the blues and the jazz influence comes through. It's improvisational music. If you're feeling a little off on a Monday night and you're playing and stuff, and that's going to come out in your music. You're going to look for that inspiration, look for that extra gear, of what's going into it. So, did it weigh heavy? To be honest with you, I think we were just so in tune with the music right from the get-go that we had that responsibility already on our shoulders, and we felt that if anything, we knew our stuff. We knew the history of the band, we knew the recordings are in our ears, and we were just ready to go and really looking to evolve our own musical journey within paying tribute to such a legendary band.
Is there a particular song that is kind of like the center of gravity for the band, that kind of defines your connection to the music, that's kind of the one that you're best connected to? I would say that maybe changes.
Oh, wow. That changes from show to show, day to day, year to year.
That makes sense with the theme and the style of the music.
The theme of it, because that's one thing that we do. We play a different set every single show. I mean, there's the crossovers, of material that, there's probably, I think we've probably played Statesboro Blues all but one show in the entirety of our 11-year run and whatnot. But within that being said, sometimes you get a Liz Reed, sometimes you get a Whipping Post, just like the Beacon. Sometimes you get a Blue Sky, sometimes you get a Jessica, and you kind of go from show to show. Sometimes like, oh man, we really hit the note on Ain't Wasting Time No More. Maybe we should do it again. The next note, it's like, it didn't live up to the last performance. Maybe we should shuffle the deck a little bit. So it's we have a repertoire of probably about 50 Allman Brothers songs in the catalog. That we also, one thing that we piggybacked on, and that was kind of the Warren Haynes influence into the band and the Gov't Mule influence, is that kind of getting mashup of material. So we also kind of dip our toe into the stew of music, of where it comes from. So we do some Dominoes tunes, obviously, Duane Allman's connection to Eric and the Dominoes and stuff like that, and that material playing into it. We also do a little mashup of with a little help from my friends from Joe Cocker, because hey, that rhythm section, Carl Radel and Jim Gordon, that was the rhythm section for the Dominoes. So it's kind of being able to expand that musical web, because that's what the Allmans did. That was the beauty of the Beacon runs and stuff like that. You didn't know what you were going to get, and I think, again, a long answer to a short question. I think that that it changes for us from day to day what we're connected to and what's into it. I mean, anytime we get a chance to play Whipping Post, for example, and we usually save the post for kind of the real big show, the big exclamation point to what we're doing. I mean, that's how do you follow Whipping Post? I mean, there's such an energy and a power to it and stuff like that. So I'd say, if anything, the epic jams are what we are kind of always using as milestones within our set, but to play those touchstones and to keep a little light and shade within the set, that's a living, breathing thing that changes from show to show. You mentioned Warren Haynes, and there's so many different eras of the Allmans with Duane and Dickey, and then Warren and Derek. What's the biggest challenge you found in honoring both periods? Because you got to mix them all up, and you're doing a lot of different eras. There is, and you know what? It's when when we do, and actually, funnily enough, so just to talk about the different eras, last night was the 55th anniversary of the release of Fillmore East,
Wow.
which we didn't even know. And we were, like I mentioned, we were over at the Stevens Talk House last night, and all of a sudden we're in a record store, and somebody, between sound check and showtime, and someone drops that on us, and we're like, oh my goodness, wow, and here we are. I guess I know what we're starting out with. We had to pull a couple audibles around and make sure we had a few of the Fillmore tracks, but it is one of those things, because we do touchstone on all of the different eras of the band, and again, 45 years, and such, not just a live legacy, but also an album legacy, and we do it all. We go all the way from the self-titled first record with "Don't Want You No More" and "Not My Cross to Bear," which is where it kicks off, and through the Fillmore East, the Duane era, whatnot, through the after the Crash type stuff with Chuck Leavell, with Ramblin' Man, Southbound, and Jessica, and all the way up to 89 when Warren came into the band with End of the Line and Seven Turns. And we actually just started putting into the set Back Where It All Begins, which I believe was the last studio recording with Dickey and Warren, which is heavy, but it's again taking the audience with us on that journey, and I slave over, I'm kind of the band leader, the musical director to an extent, but I do slave over the set list, because I want to think about it in twofold. I want to think about what's playing to the strengths of the band, how the band's feeling, what kind of show, what kind of audience are we playing to, but also as a fan, what do I want to hear? Because I remember being at the Beacon and all of a sudden, oh my God, they're opening the second set with Mountain Jam. I'm going to lose it, So I think about that a lot, and about how we can kind of take them on the journey with us. Again, that light and shade and that dynamics, not between each piece of music, but between each set, and how the songs kind of bleed in and lend into each other. Was
there ever a song, because I'm hearing you talk about a set list and creating that, was there ever a song that was kind of specifically challenging for the band to learn, so to speak, that was maybe technically demanding or whatever? Was it that it was kind of a challenge? Was it something that you can think about that took you a while?
We're always polishing our craft, so there's always a couple of things that we go into that, and the drummers will maybe, roll their heads if they get to listen to this thing, because they know I come down on them a little bit. We are a 7-piece band, and our rhythm section in the back is 2 full kits and percussion. So to kind of, see how we can kind of get that interplay and get it authentic and get it to do justice to Butch, J-Mo and Marchiones, that's again, keeping our level up and polishing up our own individual act, but also the product and the output of the band is always a thing that we're always maintaining. Russ never sleeps, man. So we especially playing this music, it's all challenging. The music is serious. I mean, the harmony lines, the dynamics, the interplay. We're lucky our lead vocalist Joe Wasserman is just can sing white boy blues with the best of them, and being able to lean on him. We've tried to integrate getting a little bit more harmonies into the band, fleshing out other guys to pick up the vocal end and layer those harmony lines, myself included there, and continue the mashup, where can we take this music a little different, because just piggybacking off what we talked about with the different eras of the band. I mean, you listen to Jessica in 1973, 1974, it is a completely different beast in 1994.
Yeah.
1990 and 1995. Yeah. I mean, they were always integrating new musical ideas, which again is so kind of progressive of the band, is that they never just kind of stopped. When they got back together in 89, it was like, all right, well, what did we do back in 74? Okay, what did we do in 72? Now all of a sudden, well, Dick, I got this idea. And Dickey, was such a master arranger, of music, and such an instrumentalist at heart, and just so accomplished with his understanding of melody. He's such a melodic player. I mean, they say about that with Duane and Dickey and stuff, that Duane had such an incredible ear and would be, but Dickey had such a musical harmony identity that they could pick up on each other. Duane would be listening to what Dickey was doing and pick up on it right there. And a lot of those harmony lines and whatnot that they did were all just that, literally improvise, trying to work it out on the road. Again, a living, breathing organism of what goes into it. Again, going back to what's most challenging, we've got a song that we haven't actually played live yet, but is an instrumental called Kind of Bird. that is off Shades of Two Worlds that I believe is a Dickey Warren combination. That, and again, the impetus and the inspiration was Charlie Bird Parker. So if you're thinking about it, it's very heavily jazz inspired, and very complicated melody, and it goes up and down. It goes into a 7/8 time period and whatnot. And we're still grinding that one out. Let's put it that way. We're still in the rehearsal room shedding that one before it's going to come out. But it's a very melodic music. It can be simple at times. It touches people. It connects to people, and then it also does have a musical edge to it of instrumentation that each player really has to make sure that they've done their wood shedding and got their fingers around it.
Is there? It's really interesting. Is there a song, because you mentioned learning these arrangements and learning something? I think you probably learn a lot about the people that perform them just by doing these songs. Is there something that sticks out to you that kind of reveals something you didn't realize about these performers in the Allman Brothers Band?
Yeah, one of the biggest things is, as much as it's a guitar band, you think about guitar, right? You think about Derek Warren, you think about Warren Dickey, Duane Dickey, all that type of stuff that goes into it. But they are so connected to the rhythm section of that band, whether it be the founders of J-Mo and Butch and Barry Oakley. They were such a pivotal foundation for Duane and Dickey to soar and to fly. And I think the other big thing about it is, as much as they were a guitar band and founded in '69, an era of guitar heroes left, right, and center: Clapton, Hendrix, Peter Green. Mick Taylor just joined the Stones at that. Zeppelin started in '69. Jimmy Page was already a legend in the studio, and the new, what would be the new Yardbirds, which would be Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. But what separated the brothers so much is that ensemble feel, that ensemble thing, that they were really playing to the strengths of each band member for the greater whole, the greater output of what was kind of coming out, and where to leave space, when to push it, when to push the tempo, when to pull back. And that rhythm section is such a strong foundation of the music that allowed the whole band to really kind of soar and have that fire and that interplay with each other, with, again, of course, two amazing guitarists with Duane and Dickey. But furthermore, again, you cannot leave out the brilliance of the songwriting and the songbook, between Greg and Dickey. The song is the vehicle for incredible instrumentalists to thrive. If you don't have a good song, you're not going to be able to play some good guitar, or a good guitar lead or whatnot. So the importance of how they were able to not just have a tremendous group of musicians, but to also have a songbook to be able to parlay. Ain't Wasting Time No More, Melissa, Dreams, Whipping Post, Dickey on the other side with Revival, Jessica, Southbound. These are you're only as good as the song you're playing. So as much as you have all of those virtuosos of musicians and whatnot through their entire period and whatnot, they also were a group, were an ensemble, and had also an incredible wealth of material to be able to play through and to improvise off of and to take it into the stratosphere. So I think that, again, diving in deep over these last 11 years, it becomes, a band of brothers, a group, an ensemble within an incredible songbook of material, as opposed to just kind of, listening to the virtuosity of any sort. And I'm a lead guitar player. So, so I'm in there thinking all that type of stuff. And I'm learning new stuff from the rhythm section every single day, and I'm learning new stuff from listening back to the Fillmore's to this day, and the intricacies and the genius of the songwriting within the band. I think that's what rounds it out for them. It really does.
It's interesting hearing you talk. You have such passion for this music and these performers, and I'd imagine you really feel like is it difficult performing? And not saying Warren he'll be there for Gov't Mule and not necessarily see you guys perform, but what's that like, knowing that you're performing with them in the same vicinity?
Let's just say this, right? We'll have a third guitar rig set up just in case Mr. Haynes wants to come on by. But I had an audience with Warren a few years back on kind of a very intimate place and whatnot. And I also, I don't necessarily, I'm in all of these musicians, and I'm a student of these musicians. You talk about learning new things. When you're studying a player and a performer, you really are studying what makes them tick. They're especially with blues, which is where it all, and jazz, which is where because it's such an emotive music. Blues, soul, R&B. There's such an emotive cadence to the phrasing that goes into, whether it be the vocalists, whether it be the guitar players, whether it be anybody that is really sustaining a note and has that kind of emotive human quality to what's going into it. You really get inside these players' heads, especially if you're listening. That's one of the hardest things I ever went through. And I studied with a mentor of mine for many years, and he always said the hardest thing to do is to listen. And if you can listen to what music you're transcribing or you're into, and you're trying to get into your own musical identity, if you can listen to the other players of the band, you can really, that intense listening really defines you as what kind of caliber and quality musician you are. So, again, when you meet these people, or when you're on the same bill or anything along those lines, I do kind of try and I know my place, let's put it that way, within the spectrum of it. And and you don't want to push, but when you have the opportunity to kind of have a musical conversation with your heroes, whether it be Warren or Derek or some of the people I've been very privileged and lucky to have meet along the lines, you play it a little bit cool, because you don't want to come off as a gushing fan and whatnot. But when you kind of get into that, you have an intimacy with these people because you study them for so long. So when you're on the same bill, and you're doing what you're doing and whatnot, it's a privilege, it's an honor. We have a responsibility to play into the song, and you're just happy to be there, and happy and privileged to be playing this music. It really is. It really, again, like you said, I am very, very passionate about it. It's been almost, somewhat of my life's work, and I'm just, I feel the responsibility, I feel the privilege, and I'm just, getting, keeping on,
Thank you very much, Sean. That's great. So the Allmost Brothers Band performing that Saturday, July 25th at this year's Great South Bay Music Festival. You can grab tickets at greatsouthbaymusicfestival.com. The lineup includes Gov't Mule, of course, Bruce Hornsby, Sierra Hull, lots more. Very cool. You guys are sharing the stage and sharing the bill with those guys, and we can't wait to see you out there.
Thank you so much.
Should be a great time at Shorefront Park. Thanks, Sean. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you guys perform.
All right. Thank you so much.